His podcast. We're back together again with another episode with Supriya Chechi, and we're discussing the 10th chapter. We're continuing with the same verse. It's a long purport, and it's taking a bit of time, but yeah, we're going with it. So yeah, go
Okay.
ahead. Hari
Hare
Krishna and Jai
Krishna.
Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Kanan Jai Srila Prabhupada. Happy to be back here. We are going to continue with chapter 10. This is a long purport. And what's interesting and almost fascinating about the purport is that Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami, translates the words in a very unusual, rather striking way. Therefore, this word ahimsa, which is in the list of qualities, uh, given here by Krishna to Arjuna. You see here, ahimsa is the vaka or the word that we were looking at last time. So he gives an unusual definition. Would you like to read that particular paragraph only, please?
Yeah, Ahim, Ahimsa non-violence means that one should not do anything which will put others into misery or confusion. Material activities that are promised by so many politicians, sociologists, philanthropists, etc., do not produce very good results because the politicians and philanthropists have no transcendental vision. They do not know what is actually beneficial for human society. Ahimsa means that people should be trained in such a way that the full utilization of the human body can be achieved. The human body is meant for spiritual realization. So any movement or any commissions which do not further that end commit violence on the human body. That which furthers the future spiritual happiness of the people in general is called non-violence.
So that's a very unusual description. Normally, the like you correctly said, when we think of ahimsa and non-violence, we think of Mahatma Gandhi. And because of Mahatma Gandhi's not a movement really, but yeah, non-violence, a non-violent protest and the civil disobedience, the whole world sees ahimsa as, and perhaps also Buddha. So basically, mean not causing violence to others, and this straightaway takes the Bhagavad Gita into the center of this debate because there are groups that see the Bhagavad Gita as a book that's promoting violence. You see this? That's what's interesting. It's they see it as a book that is preaching violence because it is Krishna is strongly recommending to Arjuna that he select the path of fighting in the battlefield instead of running it from away, because that's his dharma and duty and so on, and because there's been so much provocation from the other side and they wouldn't agree to any of the compromise offers that were made from this Pandava side. So ahimsa normally would straight away raise the question that then what kind of book is the Bhagavad Gita, because it is promoting himsa, violence, killing of human beings on the battlefield. And in today's world, especially, it is considered politically incorrect. But that's a very half baked understanding. And we are not going to go into all the details of why Arjuna is doing the right thing by when he takes Krishna's advice and makes the choice towards the end of this book to go ahead and fight because that's his duty as a Kshatriya to under provocation. But Prabhupada here therefore gives a very unusual explanation or a definition of ahimsa. Yeah, what he's trying to say is if we don't share, when we have the opportunity, we don't share this knowledge of spiritual matters and how and we don't share information about how we as a jiva can start trying to get out of this trap of repeated birth and death and get out of the material world. If we don't do it, then we are actually we were going to keep those other people in continued suffering and confusion and ignorance. They don't know. So many people tell us we didn't know about the informations there in the Bhagavad Gita. So that is inflicting violence, what Srila Prabhupada says. It's very uh, stimulating idea if you think about it. And he goes on to say, uh, therefore, he's specially referring to politicians, philanthropists, humanitarians, charity work, all this is included, sociologists, because they are supposedly doing work that is helping people, benefiting people. But it continues to keep them in this whole cycle of birth and death because there is no spiritual information that will get them up from the material platform. So, compared to all that, This distributing information or knowledge for the spiritual happiness of people in general is called non-violence. Because otherwise you're inflicting violence on them by allowing them to stay trapped. It's basically like a preacher's point. It's a very preacher's definition, encouraging people to preach and share the knowledge whenever it's possible, not to shy away, not to withdraw and say no, it may be politically not correct and sensitive, and I better not talk about the suffering of animals when they are killed for to satisfy non-vegetarian the palate. I better not. It's all not correct. He's saying that there may be a way, you may have to wait for your opportunity and put it in a way that doesn't provoke a big fight. But if you don't give this information, then we're inflicting violence on people. If we just keep silent, or it doesn't occur to many people. I know so many people who basically may claim to be great lovers of animals and birds, but it is not, they've not made this connection that they are on the other hand inflicting terrible violence on the creatures that are killed to satisfy their palate, and on themselves, because they are going to get so much karmic reaction. I know of what you say, veterinary doctors who are full of compassion for animals. So ahimsa, as described by Srila Prabhupada here, is saying that we should share this knowledge and information that saves people from the darkest regions of hell, from this repeated cycle of birth and death. Okay.
What actually with that, there's in this book which I just finished this book on science of self-realization. So
Yeah.
in that, where Prabhupada has a discussion with the father,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
talk about how I think they had a discussion with one of the priests, and so I think Prabhupada says that that it, when it comes to Christianity, like the idea of thou shalt not kill,
Yeah.
and when it comes to thou shalt not kill, by he says that Christ specifically says in the Bible that thou shalt not kill. He didn't
Yeah.
mention like, and so that, but that for some reason doesn't extend to animals also, like
Animals.
the killing of animals. And so the priest says that in our religion or our culture we don't believe that animals have souls. And so Prabhupada says that, then he says that, that every living entity has a soul, whether it's that's a human being and an animal or any living entity. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then, but in Christianity, like he was saying that because they don't believe in soul, they believe only that human beings have souls. And so the thing is that Prabhupada is trying to say that every living entity has soul, and that person's like, we should not kill animals as well.
Yeah.
So, and so then he says that, okay, then what about eating plants? And then Prabhupada says, yeah, actually, we're not even supposed to eat plants. And the reason being is because by eating, like, we commit sin when we eat anything, like any kind of thing when we eat, we commit sin. That is why before we eat it, we offer it to Radha and Krishna, and then we absolve our sins of whatever karmic result that is coming in
Yeah.
that. And then that's how we don't like directly eat it. We offer it first to Krishna, then Krishna accepts that to us, and that's how we eat it basically.
Also, every creature, in order to subsist or to exist, has to eat something else. You
Right.
can't live just on air and water. So, plants or vegetables and fruits, although yes, there is life, they're growing on a tree and you pluck it off and cut it and cook it and eat it. But still, the level of consciousness of plants is far lower than that of animals. So, the degree of sin involved is lower. Therefore, it is okay for animals to eat other animals. There is no sinful karmic reaction for a tiger that chases and kills a goat or a dog or and even human beings. There is no karma involved because its level of consciousness is so low, it cannot voluntarily opt not to eat this. So it does not get any sinful reaction at all. That's the interesting thing. Unless, or for example, a dog to eat meat and so on, a cat to eat mice and rats, and in exceptional circumstances where a domesticated pet dog is weaned away from this non-veg diet and is in, say, in a vegetarian household, it gets used to eating only nice vegetarian food, lots of milk and bread and sometimes eggs. Okay, eggs are non-veg, but in this way, weaned away, that dog has a much higher chance, better chance of a higher birth in the next life. But for human beings who have been blessed with clear consciousness to ask questions like why and who is God and what does He want us to do, what is right, what is wrong, what is conscience, it is not proper for the Christian argument to say that animals don't have souls. Because then what happens to their conception of their God as a all-loving Father? All creatures begin small. He is compassionate towards. He doesn't discriminate between the creatures. What happens to all that? So this is like some kind of selective interpretation. Just because it suits them, they are trying to argue away this habit or practice of eating meat.
But I
There
think
are, yeah,
the sorry to interrupt, but actually, I think that's the reason why, like in most countries around the world, apart from Western countries also, when
yeah,
people because they adopt the Western culture and lifestyle, then they end up it's like part Western culture in one sense Christianity is part of that. So where you don't believe that animals have a soul. So when you adopt it, you also kind of tend to like that's why a lot of people are even in non-Western countries uh, end up having meat and like especially in India, like a lot of people have meat or whatever
right,
kind of
right,
stuff. That
right,
could be
right.
the reason why it's like that, but it's not like the case when it's the if you read the Vedic literature and scriptures and all that stuff, it's a totally
Yeah.
different thing. It's a
Yeah,
totally
just remember, often people will point out that there are areas in the Vedas where meat eating is mentioned. It's true. It's mentioned. It is for people with lower consciousness and in the caste system, lower on the hierarchy. And all this was allowed intoxication, prostitution. But they were asked to live in outer rings of that society, in the city, the planned Vedic city, further and further away from contact from people who are following a dharmic, and always the system gave them opportunity to uplift themselves. Therefore you have this famous prostitute Pingala, who develops great love for Lord Krishna. You have the case of that prostitute who comes in contact with Haridas Thakura and is converted. So there's always opportunity. God, by whatever name we address him, is so all loving that he's always giving people opportunities and is giving people free choice. That's the point. Most of the rules that are there, like people say that in the Vedic system, you can have meat. I'll show you evidence. You can have meat, but it is niyama prakaram. That is according to rules. Which is, if you are having meat, you must have say so many mantras before it. What is the mantra? Basically, the mantra is that when you kill that creature, you repeat 5 times or 3 times that what I am doing to you, may you do to me in a future birth. So it is to create awareness that basically, I think even this mamsa, the word mamsa, I was listening to a preacher or teacher. Mamsa means what I am doing to you, may that happen to me in the future life. So you are making a choice to kill that goat and cook it and eat it, but with the full awareness that this fate is awaiting you in another birth. If not directly being born as a goat, some terrible
I've
murder. Yeah,
I've also heard this. I mean, there are a lot of these people who make this argument that there's like another group of people in like I think in America mostly, where they
yeah,
believe that like they're also kind of against like you know like killing animals to eat their meat. But what they do, a lot of what people do in America is like they go and hunt. So because when they hunt animals,
yeah,
then the argument that they make is that if they hunt an animal, then there is an equal chance for the animal also to like inflict pain on them. So
yeah,
and they hunt them with like bow and arrows or whatever it may be. So if it's your animals getting like a free chance to like escape or
yeah,
run away or even possibly like if they're hunting a deer, the deer can charge the person
yeah,
itself and try to inflict pain. So
yeah.
there's an argument that if you hunt an animal on your own and then kill it, that was better than like not like buying the meat from the grocery
I
store or
understand.
something.
I get your point. But the deer is actually the natural food of creatures like the tiger and the lion. And as for saying that, it has the option to run away, but it's not able to run away, so then it's like it was anyway destined to land up in your cooking pot. If you're going to say that, there are certain groups that are given the license of eating what they firstly they're given the license to hunt and kill, and then it's almost like they are duty bound to cook it and eat it. But the beauty of that Vedic Varnashram system was, if you compare with the hunting that goes on in England until the last century, now of course there's a huge movement against it. On these big estates, they would go on horses. They would send out a whole pack of those dogs to go and ferret out the creatures that they're going fox hunting, for example. Of course, nobody cooked and ate foxes, that's different. But whatever type of hunt, shooting birds, big birds, and then you see their kind of meat room is full of these birds hung, and they've been cleaned and salted and kept away. To the difference between that, which is completely for sense pleasure, for prestige, power, the thrill of killing, the thrill of the chase, the thrill of looking good in front of suitors from the opposite sex, all this, if you compare in the Indian and original Vedic system, the hunting was permitted as an activity for the Kshatriya clan, because they are supposed to be always ready to give up their life in a war at the drop of a hat, because their basic duty is to protect others from harm and violence. So they have to stay fit, right? Like if you're going to appear for a tennis champion, you have to championship, you have to practice a tournament, you have to be practicing tennis practically every day. It was like that for them. They were allowed to hunt because they have to be always ready to face the enemy on a battlefield that involved violence and possible death for them. And when they hunted, and I know this from the biography of a lady who was basically a vegetarian. This is this lady Rajamata Sindhya. She's no longer now. She had a long life, BJP leader. She was taken from one of these Nepali families and married as the second wife of the Raja of Gwalior. So because the Gwalior Maharajas, they were Kshatriya clans, Kshatriyas. She was told, and she had to. So also with the Baroda, there was a separate vegetarian kitchen and a non-veg kitchen. The whole idea was, if the men went out and hunted, and what they brought back as fowl and meat and deer and venison and so on, it's their duty to cook and taste it. Because the idea behind the hunting was, it is to keep you practice, and then when war comes, you cannot just say, no, I'm frightened, I don't believe in violence, I won't go and fight. And there is even the story of a particular Rajput woman, the queen, who, when her husband turned a coward and went to the battlefield and ran away from the battlefield, or because for the Rajput, when duty calls, you go and fight, and death is preferred to uh, being defeated. If you are defeated, it's a big shame. You win and come back. If you're defeated, it's better to give up your life there. So apparently the Rajput who came back defeated or ran away from the battlefield, the Rajput Maharani, this is in recent times, like 1800s, 1700s, relatively recent. She refused to open the palace door because it is her job to remind him her part of the dharma, of maintaining what is the dharma of that particular clan. It's a little bit like if a parent comes to know that a child has cheated and come top, then then it is the parent has a moral choice. Do you accept the victory or the success of the child if there is absolute proof that the child paid money or cheated and got into the IAS or got into the civil services? These are kind of what they call dharma sankat. There are points in every adult's life where you have to make a moral choice, what is good and what is bad. So this business about ahimsa, it's nowadays, unfortunately, the whole mood is so much in favor of all this, very oversensitive, um, uh, totally against violence of any kind, that it's almost, you can't even explain that there was another way of thinking that was prevalent, and what we read in books like the Bhagavad Gita has a separate logic. There's no concept of duty. You just do what feels good. You never do what actually might be good for you. So the climate is very difficult to explain these kind of things. Okay, so can we move on to Samata?
Yeah. So,
Samata, yeah.
you want to read, or shall I read?
You read. You read.
Samatha equanimity refers to freedom from attachment and aversion. To be very much attached or to be very much detached is not the best. This material world should be accepted without attachment or aversion. That which is favorable for prosecuting Krishna consciousness should be accepted. That which is unfavorable should be rejected. That is called samatha, equanimity. A person in Krishna consciousness has nothing to reject and nothing to accept, save in terms of its usefulness in the prosecution of Krishna consciousness.
Okay, so basically here it is it's equanimity or having equilibrium in the way we approach situations and objects, neither too much attachment nor too much aversion. So it's telling us to aim for a particular type of detachment. To be very much attached or be very much detached is not the best. I think we discussed even this a little bit last time, because that when we are new to the concept that spiritual life depends to a great degree on controlling our senses, there is a tendency to try and practice complete detachment from sense enjoyment. And the point was being made that visitors to the temple, especially ladies, find that full-time temple brahmacharis are having such a tough time trying to strike the right balance. Anybody from the opposite gender is like a source of sense pleasure for them. So they don't want to have anything to do with them. You ask for a cushion to sit on, they will just throw the cushion at you and run away from there. This is showing somebody who is not yet struck the right balance between too much detachment and too much attachment, and can't blame them, because there is so much always luring people away from the spiritual path. So
I
much
think
to distract.
also, I
Yeah,
I think also the brahmachari life, especially like if you're in an ashram, you're learning all the right things, but also there's like so much of discussion about detachment, and then there's also this. I would say sometimes there can be like a competition almost of who can detach the most, and
yeah, yeah, that's true.
like
Yeah,
then it becomes like a very like serious sort of game that you play, like who can detach
like
the
a mind
most.
mind game,
Yeah,
almost like a
yeah.
mind game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
who can detach the most, who can love the most, who can love Krishna the most, and who can do all these things the most. And then you lose like the perspective that that no, but Krishna loves it when you love their devotees, and you don't have to be detached with everything. You can There's some things that you can be attached with, like like attachment to love for the devotees and serving people, doing all these things, not competition and other things and other stuff. I think like that happens sometimes, but I've noticed also like something that's interesting, like even there are people that I know, for example, who are not all into bhakti or any kind of spiritual path, but they have like a natural sort of detachment mentality without
uh-huh.
even without being on any type of spiritual path. They're already in one sense like they have like this detachment mentality in them, like they're already detached from so many things that are like I'll see them and they'll be like, yeah, like they won't do this, they won't do that, things that are a normal brahmacharya self would do. They're not doing those things, but they're not part of any path, but they don't believe in anything spiritual, like but they're living in a very good way, which is very interesting. I don't know how that.
Intriguing. It is very intriguing, but it's probably something they have brought from a previous life.
Yeah,
It's some quality. It is a great quality, like what you're saying, to be able to live like that. But it's something they brought from a spiritual life. But it's possible that what they have also brought from a spiritual life is certain way mistrust of all spiritual paths. That's why they're not into anything religious spiritual. They've obviously had very bad experiences. Those impressions of samskara stay on the mind. But at the same time, that what they've cultivated, this awareness of that this path of detachment is safer, that is they are keeping it with them. They have not lost. Just 1 minute, just hold on.
yeah, yeah, sure, sure, sure. So Supriya Chechi is gone somewhere. She'll be
No,
back.
yes, sorry. It was just the video con, from the security
No,
was,
no,
it makes a
no, no,
big
that's okay.
noise, so I went up to.
No, no, that's okay.
Right, but just to answer your question about brahmacharis in the temple, sometimes developing a mind game of competing, it's true. But that's why they always need to be under the watchful eye of some superior, preferably their guru. That's not possible nowadays, but even if the guru visits different centers all the time, he will note. I have heard of gurus who observe that someone is really overdoing the brahmacharya. What does it suggest? If that her mentality continues for a long time, what it basically suggests is that that brahmachari needs to move out of that ashram and to enter marriage. And sometimes the guru will make such a disciple sit down and explain that this is what needs to be done, and they will do it. So that aspect, because the guru helps you to strike the right balance. That is the meaning of a proper guru. Guru means grave, serious. So if you're overdoing something, even if it is a supposed good quality, that's not good. The serious intervention that's required is somebody brings you back on the right path and tells you, I think what you really need to do is to get into the austerity of marriage. The pleasures of marriage and companionship and all may be there, but it also means that basically you're going to have to put up with all the difficulties and austerities once you make shift of such an ashram. So equanimity here, or like you've said, means it's like a middle path, and the person should know that that which is favorable. Okay, no, before we go to that, the first sentence in this, to be very much attached or to be very much detached is not the best. This material world should be accepted without attachment or aversion. That which is favorable for prosecuting Krishna consciousness should be accepted. That which is unfavorable should be rejected. This is called samatha or equanimity. A person in Krishna consciousness has nothing to reject and nothing to accept save in terms of its usefulness in the prosecution of Krishna consciousness. Now, how do we deal with our simple, harmless desires? Somebody likes to collect a lot of books. Somebody likes, lady, say, likes not that expensive but clothes. Someone likes there are so many things that a person may aspire for. Somebody wants people who come to the movement, the ladies, they say they love to dress up. So how do we deal with this? What usually happens is through the devotional path, two things happen. You are developing a relationship with Krishna by the daily chanting and remembering and hearing. So he is now an active player in helping you deal with your situation in this material world. Second thing is you are actually also physically doing certain devotional services according to your inclination and taste. So we've seen ladies who were uh, very much over concerned with dressing up and spending a lot of money on 3 earrings on the ear and 4 toe rings, and they gradually buy, collect, use all this to decorate the deity, or they contribute. If their own deity is too tiny and a male deity, or not, you can't decorate so much, they get involved with the making of jewelry, which is often out of plastic beads. In ISKCON, it's never gold. Srila Prabhupada actually forbade gold from being used for the deities, because he said it will create crime, robbing, this robbing tendency amongst those who are looking after the deity items. So he banned it. It's not like traditional Indian temples where people donate big gold harams. Then either they go missing or they're kept in a vault, and it requires 10 people's signature to bring it out and put it on the date. It's all very complicated. You see, or the Devaswam board then comes under, the board that looks after the temples comes under a lot of criticism because something has gone missing. This has happened in Guruvayur. One anklet went missing out of a pair, and the pujari, the Nambudiri priest who was accused of it, felt so badly that he jumped into a well and committed suicide. And then many years later, that anklet actually reappeared. It was very much around. So to avoid these confusions, Srila Prabhupada gave guidance that you can dress the deities as opulently as you like, but not gold jewelry. Lovely designs made with color beads and fake gold and fake stuff. You
I
know
heard this
that.
story.
Yeah,
With this when you said Guruvayur, I just
yeah,
and
yeah.
also this we're talking about like how that things are getting banned, and so some I heard, like, I remember something that Kastuba Das had mentioned in the Business Sages podcast in the last episode, I think. So he's gone to Guruvayur, and
See,
the thing is what he said was like when he went to Guru. So normally they in Guruvayur they don't allow anybody that's not a Hindu there inside. So in
right.
the temple.
Uh-huh.
But what he did was is that he went to the like he went during the afternoon time, when nobody was
Uh-huh.
there. Hardly any people were there. He
I
went
see.
and he got inside the temple and he did everything and he came back. So what happened was his wife was also there. His wife is actually a Sri Lankan, I think. His
I
wife is Sri
see.
Lankan. So and she's also into Krishna consciousness and bhakti and everything like that. And so when he went inside, he thought, okay, everything is fine. He came back and he told his wife, okay, we both can go now. So when they went there, apparently the priest stopped both of them and said, "You can't enter, and
I see.
you're not allowed to enter."
Right,
And
right.
he said, he basically looked at them. He's like, only Hindus are allowed to enter this temple. Whatnot. And then he said, but I I practice bhakti. I practice this. If you want, I can recite mantras for you. If
I
things that
see.
I don't know. So after some time, the priest apparently like looked at Kastuba and said, "Okay, you are allowed, but she's not allowed."
I see. Uh-huh.
And so it's like there was like obviously there's like some type of discrimination that's happening there. There's
Right,
like
right, right.
one is that she's not Indian, but more than that, like I mean she's like a lot of things. Whatever. She's not from here. She's from Sri Lanka. Or she's not
Uh-huh.
Hindu. I mean whatever. So he
Uh-huh.
was telling the story of how this. But then what happened is that what he says is that so they were obviously feeling very bad about this whole experience, and then there was a policeman,
Uh-huh.
and there was a big scene that happened because of this, and there was a
So one
policeman.
minute. So he was allowed to go in, but she was because she was not wearing the clothes that are required to get
No,
in.
no,
She's
not
probably brown skinned. Brown skin.
yeah,
Brown.
brown
So
skin, but
then
she
why
was
did
not
they?
allowed because I don't know. Maybe it's because they're discriminating against their own people. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's why.
Or maybe she said that she's not Indian or something.
No,
Anyway,
yeah, they got to know she's not Indian. So then,
okay.
and
Anyway,
so
go
there was
on.
already a doubt whether she was Hindu and all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then suddenly, what happened was there was a policeman who came, and the policeman felt really bad about all this. And the
I see.
policeman went and apologized to
Kausuba.
Customer Das and said that that we are sorry that this happened. You come from you come from you come from so many like far away places just to come and see the temple and stuff, and then you're not allowed to get inside. He kind of actually made sure the whole situation was resolved, but then he took them outside and said, we're sorry for this kind of stuff. And Gustav was like, he was very angry with the priest and like he's very like upset by all this. But then his but the policeman somehow he has no connection with anything. Somehow calmed him down with everything and all stuff. So he was like saying that that so there's like two sides to the people who are
Right,
not
right.
so spiritually like this thing and all that stuff are also kind of have this mentality and all that stuff. So
So
yeah.
is this on this visit it happened or on a
No, no, no.
previous
Some previous visit he said. Some
previous
previous
visit?
visit.
I see. Yeah, it's unfortunate they have these rules. In the Padmanabha Swami temple here, foreigners are allowed, provided ISKCON kind of gives some certificate that this is a actual devotee living according to Vedic lifestyle and not drugging and smoking and drinking and all that. And they have then they are a certain kind of like the Maharaja here because he's considered the topmost in terms of some hierarchy of devotional rights privileges. There is the Pattam Palace. I've taken one of my foreign Switzerland, a girl from Switzerland. They give permission, and then provided the clothes are right, like dhoti for the men and a sari type for the lady, they're allowed in. So here it's actually they should be able to discriminate in a positive way and allow those who are clearly doing such wonderful and great things. But the people at the gate are not um, that what's the word for it, that
Aware.
intelligently aware, or they are scared they will lose their job, so they are blocked foreigners who try to get to these temples.
So
But
immediately after the telling this story, like he
yeah,
was saying that he was telling like in the podcast he was saying that that the story of the of the small kids going to the brahmanas and the brahmanas like rejecting them and then they going to the wives of the brahmanas the story. that story where when the boys get, you know the
You
story,
mean
right?
Krishna and Balaram? When Krishna and
Krishna and
Balaram want food and they are in the
yeah, they
forest.
want food. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So then
Yeah, boy.
the boys get rejected by the brahmanas or the
The
brahmanas
wives
who
of the
are,
Brahmanas produce food.
and then
Yeah.
they go the wives of them, and they are very, very okay, or very, like, they accept him, in one sense. So he was bringing
That's
about the
right.
story. He was bringing about a story to also show that sometimes you're a priest, but you don't have like any, like, you're very, like, you're still bound by your own, like, pride that you are a priest, you're a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
pujari at the temple, and that you can give orders to people and things like that. No, that's not so. He's saying that.
Actually, there is a particular podcast with, I don't know if I forwarded to you, with the same Kaustuba Das Prabhu and a famous ISKCON scholar called, his name was Ravi Gupta, but otherwise he's known as Radhika Raman Prabhu.
Huh.
And in that discussion, what really the Bhagavatam, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the most interesting comment or perspective I have heard so far, I think it came from Kaustuba, that the Bhagavatam is a extraordinary book because the normal hierarchy we are taught to observe in society is turned on its head, and so many unconventional things happens. Sati, the wife of Lord Shiva, she rebels against her father Daksha because she feels her husband has been insulted. She even gives up her body. Dhruva, the child Dhruva, he rebels against his father because he's hurt. He's not allowed to sit on the lap of the father because he's only the son of the second wife, or not stepwise second wife. So that anger makes him get into terrible kind of practices. Child Pradat, he finally he brings about a situation to not personally avenging but brings about the destruction of his own father. So there's a very perceptive perspective, insight, that people shouldn't go away from the Bhagavatam thinking, oh, age old stories, it's always the male voice coming through. It's not that. It just topples and turns established hierarchical systems on its head, which means eventually what the message is, that eventually it doesn't matter whether you're a Brahmana priest, you could still miss the point, as in the case of the story you narrated. Doesn't matter whether you are the Raja, whether you are the father-in-law of Lord Shiva, you could still miss the point and just miss the whole point completely. It doesn't matter if you're Dhruva's father. So it means that if finally all that matters is that your bhakti, and irrespective of gender and class and caste and community and so on, and age and your position in the family line, uh, the, the door is always open for you to turn to the Lord when you're in great grief and trouble and distress. That's a
I
astonishing kind of perspective.
Yeah,
you know
but
yeah, go on.
so yeah, when I heard the story, I felt actually like quite bad for him. I was like, because he's like, I mean, he's well known in ISKCON, and he's like,
Kaustubh.
a big person, like, and like, he's probably knows a lot of he knows so much
Absolutely,
scripture.
the
Most
service he's
he,
doing. Yeah,
yeah, and he knows more about scripture than most other, like, I would say, a lot of other Indians and a lot of people and stuff. For him, that kind of thing that happened, like, and then
yeah,
for
yeah,
him
yeah,
to,
yeah.
like, and there are a lot of people, lot of Indians who go to Guruvayur, not all devotional, or just go because they want some material benefit, or they, somebody, their father forces them to go, or something like
Right.
that. And
Tulabaram.
it's kind
Somebody
of,
made yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Tulabaram. Somebody made
yeah,
a
yeah.
promise to the Lord in the mind. Okay, go on.
And
Yeah,
also, like, the I've gone to Guruvayur so many times with my
right.
father and mother and all stuff, and like, it's kind of like when you go there also, it's like a show, like, everybody's trying to like show
Right.
uh, who's more devotional, who's more, like, uh,
Yeah, but just be careful. No, just be careful, because what that actually means is that that is very karma kanda understanding of
karma
bhakti
kanda
to
work.
Guruvayurappa. Karma kanda. They are only interested, again, it's based on what you can get out of it. So in the process of going to visit Guruvayurappan, if you can pose as somebody superior to someone else, that's the motivation. So what you're describing, it is unfortunate, but that is a karma kanda approach to Guruvayurappan bhakti.
Guruvayur.
And what you are saying is about Kaustubha Das, it's true. It really kind of disturbs a lot of us, even in Jagannath Puri, because Jagannath Puri, the devotees and the governments, influenced by ISKCON
Yeah,
have been,
that's
what is
sad.
the word? Yeah,
Which is allowed.
yeah, they have been arguing and fighting and what is the word for it?
Litigation.
Litigating for a long time, but those pandas and that old system of thinking, they just won't change. All they say is that same Jagannath comes out of the temple once a year for 1 week, is totally available to the foreigners, because he not only comes out for the Rath Yatra, he's pulled to another place called the Gundicha temple, and he stays there for 3-4 days. And not only does he stay there, Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra, these big deities, I have seen foreigner, no matter what, they climb up and you can even embrace the deity. I've seen this happening. Use quite a bit to climb, because the Rath, they're still on the Rath, and that's pretty high. But there is a period before they're moved into the Gundicha temple where they stay, and that is supposed to be, I think, like the mother-in-law's house for the deities, if I'm not mistaken. But it is uh, uh, anybody, foreigner, devotee, can climb up, and you, of course, the pandas demand a donation, but that is a time when you can not just worship, you can actually hug, embrace, do whatever you like to the deity. Then the deity is moved into Gundicha temple, and then after that, it is the Rath comes back. So the argument of the Puri people is like this, and it's true. Many Westerners are still upset. They are personally and privately worshipping so many cute Jagannath deities with such so much amazing uh, devotion and regulated practice, because Srila Prabhupada gave them that the facility or the license to do it. In Padmanabha Swami temple, like I told you, the foreigners, provided they are following this track, and ISKCON has been given the license to uh, get them the permission. So I don't understand why in the Guruvayur temple something like that is not in place, because there is an ISKCON active in Guruvayur. If something like that were put in place, it would get those who are, of course, here it is a Raja's palace that decides. Maybe in Guruvayur there is no such. ISKCON is then just kind of an intermediary to tell the Pattam palace that yes, we vouch for these people, they are initiated in ISKCON, they are following all the proper Vedic ways. But maybe in Guruvayur such a something like that is not not yet set up in place, or the Guruvayur Devaswam won't cooperate, because that is the only practical solution to these kind of situations, that like what
There
disturbing, that
was,
someone like
there was,
Supadas is not allowed. Yeah,
there was just another incident, but this I heard like long back, where in the I think that Bhakti Center there's a YouTube channel, right? So in
yeah,
that there was one of the devotees who's giving a class. He I
yeah.
think is like he's kind of I think East or Southeast Asian from that region. So
Uh-huh.
he was saying the story where he wanted to enter the Jagannath Puri temple. He
Uh-huh.
tried his best and he entered the temple. And what he
Uh-huh.
did was, I forgot his name, but maybe I'll try to find out his name and tell you on. I know
Yeah.
his face, but he was saying that uh, he basically pretended that he was northeastern, northeast basically from the northeast. So
Uh-huh.
because
Oh,
northeasterners they look
this
like
yeah,
east
yeah, yeah.
and southeast,
Sure. We
So
can
he
easily pass
pretend,
it. Yeah.
yeah, he pretended like he was that, and then he somehow he got inside the temple and he could see
Uh-huh.
the deity, and then he came out and all stuff. But like he was like I'm blessed in that way, but there are so many people, especially in the west, like in western countries, or even if you're like an African country or many countries, people are not allowed to get into these temples because mainly again it all comes down to the color of your skin in one sense, and also like how because if a Pakistani person who's a Muslim pretended to be a Hindu, he could enter the Jagannath Puri temple. There was no
Right,
issue for
right,
us.
right.
But
It's
if you
true.
are a person of color, like a black person or a white person, you're not allowed to the temple. You can't see the thing. So it's kind of I don't know. It's weird in that sense. Why that's done.
Right. Yeah, it's extremely unfair. Absolutely unfair. Especially the Jagannath temple. And now I'm hearing also in Guruvayur. I think even Yeshudas, the singer, because he's Christian, has not been allowed. Is that right?
Yeah, even today, recently, there was a news today about Amla Paul. She tried to enter, she's a celebrity actress. So she tried to enter, I think, one of the temples. I'm not sure which one, but I think Guruvayur or some other temple. And she tried to enter it, but they weren't letting her enter the temple. She
Uh-huh.
wants to go, if she wants to pray, she wants to go. But it's weird
Uh,
because I can enter a Christian church, I can go to a
Right, right,
church,
right.
I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
go to a
yeah.
mosque, but for some reason, others can't enter the Hindu temple for some reason. That doesn't make any
Right,
sense.
yeah. No, it is Yeshudas. Why it upset a lot of his fans is because Yeshudas has sung with lot of devotion, many
Ah, yeah,
intimate
Yeshudas.
songs.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, for Krishna and for Guru. So it seemed very unfair. I don't know why nobody intervened, like some of the ministers, who could make a difference. There's some board chairman or someone. Talking of Christians getting in, I have taken a Christian girl called Anjali Thomas into the Padmanabha Swami temple here. She somehow had a great fascination. She was coming to ISKCON a little bit. She used to come home. And I don't know if you could say she looked Christian or not, but we got her into a sari and she very much went in. She got in. She was very happy to be in there. And then she came home and took off the sari and they didn't know anything. Because I think she even had a small cross on her neck, but she somehow hid it. I have seen sisters in full nun habit in the Padmanabha Swami temple. That's what I'm finding very perplexing. Now that it's coming back to me, I've seen a whole batch of them. I don't know on what grounds they were allowed in. You see, either there's some one day or they got some permission from the palace or what, I don't know. I've seen sisters, I've been very amazed that they've been allowed in. They're full, they didn't make any attempt to disguise or hide.
yeah.
Okay?
That.
Yeah.
So hopefully everything works. People are allowed to
Yeah.
go. And we
Hopefully.
get this.
I mean, that the day will come when they are not discriminated against for such superficial and silly reasons,
Yeah,
because if the bhakti and the desire is there, that itself is a great thing.
yeah,
In the Padmanabha Swami temple, now things have become very complicated because when a request like this comes, this whole issue about so much gold having been found in the walls and the Pakistani and the Muslim terror funding angle and how they raid so many lodges and find Muslims with the intention of creating terror related violence are parked themselves and two of them managed to get into the temple. So there's this whole new angle that you have to be extra suspicious what the intentions are. It's anyway. Uh, all right. Now tushti or satisfaction. Okay. The next paragraph. Please read tushti. That's the word for
yeah.
satisfaction.
Tushti satisfaction means that one should not be eager to gather more and more material goods by unnecessary activity. One should be satisfied with whatever is obtained by the grace of the Supreme Lord. That is called satisfaction. Tapas means austerity or penance. There are many rules and regulations in the Vedas which apply here, like rising early in the morning and taking a bath. Sometimes it is very troublesome to rise early in the morning, but whatever voluntary trouble one may suffer in this way is called penance. Similarly, there are prescriptions for fasting on certain days of the month. One may not be inclined to practice such fasting, but because of his determination to make advancement in the science of Krishna consciousness, he should accept such bodily troubles when they are recommended. However, one should not fast unnecessarily or against Vedic injunctions. One should not fast for some political purpose. That is described in the Bhagavad Gita as fasting in ignorance. Anything done in ignorance or passion does not lead to spiritual advancement. Everything done in the mode of goodness does advance one, however, and fasting done in terms of the Vedic injunction enriches one in spiritual knowledge.
Okay, so there are two qualities mentioned here: tushti satisfaction and tapas austerity. So maybe they are connected because tushti satisfaction, people have this idea, especially in the karma kanda view of religion. They will say the person's growing old. They will say, okay, let them keep satisfying all their desires. Chedotta in Malayalam, agrahangalakke, all their desires, let them keep fulfilling. That's a misconception because desires are never going to get fulfilled. A lady may say, when I was in my younger days, there was never sufficient money for me to buy the kind of saris I wanted. Now I'm growing old, but I'm going to keep buying saris, keep buying gold. A man may say something like that about clothes or about, but that kind of satisfaction, as he says, one should not be eager to keep gathering more and more material goods for unnecessary activity. There has to be some restraint. How does it restraint come? Only if the knowledge sinks in that finally all this material uh, purchasing and trying to satisfy oneself materially doesn't really satisfy unless something clicks into place regarding a connection with the Lord. It's not going to give satisfaction. It's like pouring fuel or petrol on a fire. The fire just kind of keeps growing bigger. One should be satisfied with whatever is obtained by the grace of the Supreme Lord. That is called satisfaction. Okay, tushti. which means it really that if you can see the Lord's hand in certain developments, it may be something completely material. You may be going on searching for a particular type of something, and then suddenly some link someone shares, and you find this is exactly what you were looking for. What happens? That Krishna has made some arrangement, maybe something completely material, but it satisfies so totally when you feel that then you don't want to buy any more of the same stuff. We occasionally had this kind of situation where I was going on looking for round shaped bowls to make flower arrangements. I looked and looked and looked, and the round shaped bowls all are meant to be flower pots, so they have a drainage hole at the bottom. This is stupid because then you can't pour water into it. I looked and I looked on the pavements, and I consulted your mother, and she sent some photos and whatnot, but it's all not available. So finally, what I did, I settled for these round shaped, not too expensive ceramic painted designed bowls with a drainage, but put another plastic small vessel inside it to hold the water. So basically, meaning it is like what they say, jugad, to make a trick and turn this. That's what I was managing. Suddenly, out of the blue, my friend who lives behind Usha, she said she was doing too much breeze. Sorry, she was doing a kind of complete cleaning out, and she's cleaning out all this agadam bagadam stuff that either she purchased or someone gave us gift and sometime in the past when she went abroad, and she sent a photo and said this is a cut glass, would you like to have it? But I will send you a photo some other time. It's exactly what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for it in cut glass. I would have preferred a color ceramic, but then I realized that the cut glass, she said take it as a gift, so I joyfully accepted it, because in a cut glass more delicate flowers like roses will look lovely. The ceramic painted Indian ethnic looking stuff is good for just bright flowers, but roses are refined and delicate, and now this will look lovely. So I immediately saw Krishna's hand in this. That you see, so that gives such total satisfaction that after that one doesn't want to acquire more of that same stuff. It's a very important point to remember. Actually, when these podcasts, when you came up with the idea 1 year ago, your father consulted. I was full of apprehension because I didn't know what is this, and it is not the kind of teaching I normally do. But later I saw, because my situation was so difficult, I wasn't able to travel to Mayapur to resume the regular teaching there. I couldn't do much because I was overloaded with domestic and other stuff going on. But this once a week idea of teaching something that I'm already pretty familiar with because I've taught it several times, and your interest in the subject, I immediately saw this is Krishna's arrangement. He knows I can't do anything more now.
Even I have kind of, from my point of view, also I looked at it as Krishna's arrangement in one sense that, like, they say that, like, at like, when you show a little bit of interest, then somebody comes along and then tries to, like, help you along the way in that
Yeah, yeah,
process and
yeah.
all sorts. So I also kind of saw it, like, that there's like some kind, like,
Absolutely.
facilitation of Krishna's hand to try to help you to, like, get this
Right,
and all
yeah.
stuff. So I saw it
But
also in that way.
absolutely, because there are days when I come unprepared into the class. I'm not even able because of the pressure of the work. But those days often turn out to be that you, as a student or the hearer, has something very interesting to contribute from what you've been hearing. So it's worked out well. So when maybe that's what it's. It's just one sentence. But what Srila Prabhupada is saying, if you think about it, one should be satisfied with whatever is obtained by the grace of the Supreme Lord. So, therefore, what that means is, when we see Krishna has made this arrangement, that gives a total satisfaction that one doesn't hanker. I'm not becoming famous doing podcasts like all the other speakers, or having my own podcast, or zipping off to Mayapur and giving. It's no, because this is Krishna's arrangement. This is all I can manage right now, and it's going quite nicely. Meaning, I'm also learning so much and hearing about wisdom of the sages and your input. So that is tushti or satisfaction. Now the next one, which is tapas, means austerity or penance. There are many rules and regulations in the Vedas which apply here, like rising early in the morning and taking a bath. Sometimes it's very troublesome to rise early in the morning. Other thing is, it's actually supposed to be beneficial for us if we rise early in the morning, because when we come to chapter 14 and the three modes, the mode of goodness or sattva guna is maximum available in the early hours. Therefore they say Brahma Muhurta, and modern lifestyles, work pressures make it impossible or make it very difficult. I know that. Nowadays, early means 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock. But what they're meaning is, if you can get the benefit of that early morning quiet, and the cool before the sun is out and the pollution is in full flow. Therefore, even children were often encouraged to, if they're memorizing shlokas, the brain is most receptive at that time. So in all these Gurukula type systems, the Vedic chanting, learning, by hearting takes place at that time. And the rest of the day, if they had to understand and discuss and debate. Nowadays it's really difficult, but therefore people, at least I've seen morning walkers get up really early and they're up by 5:45 in the darkness they go. Even that shows a particular discipline. And because it means that they are being able to take benefit from that early part of the day before Rajoguna sets in. The first 8 hours, starting from around 4 in the morning, the day is divided into 3 gunas, so 24 into 8 hours. That's right. I think the first 8 hours, starting from 3 or 2 or something in the morning till about 10 o'clock, is supposed to be Sattva Guna. By then, the hustle bustle of the day starts the next 8 hours. And then evening onwards, it is really tamas. Because at least traditionally, all the dark deeds were done under darkness. You do all these illicit activities. Nightfall, good people don't stay out late at night. It's not considered safe. Crime is done at that time. Why? Because that is very much when tamoguna or tamas dominates. That was the logic by which the day was divided. So tapas means austerity or penance. There are many rules and regulations. Sometimes it's very troublesome to rise early in the morning. But whatever voluntary trouble one may suffer in this way, it is called penance. Similarly, there are prescriptions for fasting on certain days of the month. Now here, what he's saying, Srila Prabhupada is saying, is very important. One may not be inclined to practice such fasting, but because of his determination to make advancement in the science, he should accept such bodily troubles when they are recommended. No, more than this is in itself important, because the idea is that at least for that one day or half a day, you try and overcome the pushing and pulling of the stomach, and you're not thinking of food all the time. Unfortunately, what happens is when you're not ready and you start doing this fasting without the supportive system, you end up thinking only about food, because you're wondering when the fast will be over and when you can get back to eating. That's one half. The other half, what he says, is even more important, that if fasting is done, it must be done only for spiritual reasons. Otherwise, all this political fasting, fast unto death, to raise attention, call attention to a particular issue. I think even Mahatma Gandhi did it, and so many other people now are doing it. That is described in Bhagavad Gita as fasting in ignorance, and anything done in ignorance or passion does not lead to spiritual advancement. Everything done in the mode of goodness does advancement. However, and fasting done in terms of Vedic injunctions enriches one in spiritual knowledge. Here now, it's become such a farce for political reasons. Whenever there's a major issue or an agitation, the political party just hires a whole lot of people to come and sit there and say they are fasting, and they just lie around and look very sloppy and sleepy and just sit there and waving flags or shouting slogans. And the minute the so-called fasting is over, and sometimes even it's just sham, because they're taken at the back to some place and given something to eat. Even the political agitators who join these big processions are paid on a daily basis, given full khana. It's not that they have any allegiance to the party or any faith in the issue that is being. So all this kind of political gimmicks, if you've been fasting into it, Srila Prabhupada is saying, it's stupid, because that's not its original purpose. That's not why fasting is done. Fasting must be done only for spiritual advancement, and done in the right consciousness, so that you don't see it as just some terrible curse or burden. Initially, it may be difficult, and a whole day fast I wouldn't recommend at all, like Ekadashi or half a day. There is something auspicious. There is Janmashtami, there is Gaura Purnima, there is Balaram Jayanti, there is Hanuman Jayanti coming. Okay, why do we have fast for half a day as an offering to the deity? You can ask, deity never asked me to fast. Idea is that half a day, then you try and control your thoughts so that you think only about the deity rather than about your breakfast and your lunch, and then by lunchtime you eat. That is still okay. That kind of offering is still more sensible and practical. So what it means is basically only breakfast you are missing, or breakfast you drink water or little fruits and don't have what you normally eat at breakfast. Fast till lunchtime, break the fast, and whatever eat. That's still all right. Okay, next one, as far as charity is concerned, just start reading and then we can follow it up next time. Yeah.
So as far as charity is concerned, one should give 50% of his earnings to a good cause. What is a good cause? It is that which is conducted in terms of Krishna consciousness. That is not only a good cause, but the best cause. Because Krishna is good, his cause is also good. Thus, charity should be given to a person who is engaged in Krishna consciousness. According to the Vedic literature, it is enjoined that charity should be given to the Brahmana. This practice is still followed, although not very nicely in terms of the Vedic injunction. But still, the injunction is that charity should be given to the Brahmanas. Why? Because they are engaged in higher cultivation of spiritual knowledge. A Brahmana is supposed to devote his whole life to understanding Brahman. Brahma Janatiti Brahmanaha. One who knows Brahman is called a Brahmana. Thus, charity is offered to the Brahmanas because they are always engaged in higher spiritual service and have no time to earn their livelihood. In the Vedic literature, charity is also to be awarded to one in the renounced order of life, the sannyasi. The sannyasis beg from door to door, not for money, but for missionary purposes. The system is that they go from door to door to awaken the householders from the slumber of ignorance because the householders are engaged in family affairs and have forgotten their actual purpose in life. Awakening their Krishna consciousness, it is the business of the sannyasis to go as beggars to the householders and encourage them to be Krishna conscious. As it is said in the Vedas, one should awake and achieve what is due him in this human form of life. This knowledge and method is distributed by the sannyasis. Hence, charity is to be given to the renouncer of life, to the brahmanas and similar good causes, not to any whimsical cause.
Okay, so basically meaning that one should show discrimination even while doing something good as giving charity. Otherwise, for example, if you're going to give money to somebody who's just going to take it and drink himself and ruin his liver even more, it's not only harmful to that person, we also take the karma. Why particularly Brahmins? Because traditionally they were meant to impart the knowledge that awakens people's God consciousness. Nowadays, it's become more like a whole commercial thing. They demand hefty sums. They don't practice anything properly. That's very unfortunate. That is part of the business of the age of Kali, the Iron Age. But otherwise, a Brahmana is supposed to devote his whole life to understanding God and to sharing that knowledge and educating others, so that he should not be burdened with the business of also raising money to keep himself and his family alive. Therefore, the other varnas, that is the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas and the Shudras, are expected, if they have the money, to give something to support the Brahmin. That's the actual proper culture. Like I said, nowadays it's become commercial. The Brahmins demand, they live lavishly, they live beyond their means, and it is part of this Kali age. So let's stop here because it's 6 o'clock. All right. Next time we start with Yashas, depending on when we get back, and then we move on to the next verse.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So all the best for your new